Hello guys, I'm Ishal the Intelligent. Welcome to my channel, Learn with ELP. I really hope my introduction video on quadratic equations was helpful and that you're ready to roll. So today's video is going to be about solving quadratic equations, and I'll be covering it in two parts. So my first part will be about factorization and its limitation, and my second video will be about the quadratic equations which we can't handle with factorization, so we'll be using another method, which is completing the square. And also in the second video, we're also going to be deriving the quadratic formula by using the help of the completing the square method, and we're going to solve some quadratic equations. So that's it for the intro. Let's roll. So guys, now we're going to be learning the methods of solving quadratic equations. As you can see, there are three methods. There is factorization, completing the square, and the quadratic formula. And completing the square is a method, and so is factorization. And you can also say quadratic formula is, but the only thing about it is that it's derived from the second method, which is completing the square. So basically all we did was completing the square method, we made the standard form of a quadratic equation, go through that method, and then we got a formula. And all we do in the quadratic formula is put the values of your quadratic equation into that, and you get its values. And it's probably the simplest method, I guess, because all you gotta do is put the values and solve it. And factorization is also very easy, but the only thing about factorization is that it's not always solvable, or meaning like not all questions can be solved by it. So sometimes it won't really work for some quadratic equations. So that's the only drawback to the factorization. But other than that, factorization is pretty easy. And completing the square, you can't say it's complex. It might have a bit more like steps and stuff, but it's pretty easy, like all of them are, especially when you get the concept. And once you've done the questions again and again and use these methods equally and again, then I don't think you'll see any of them easier than the other. It's just about time, I guess. After that, it's just like which one's more time taking or something. So other than that, I don't think there's going to be any other problem once you finish this video. It's all going to be clear, I hope. Okay, so, and by the way, if you do not get any single thing in this video as to what is a standard form and any single thing else, I recommend that you go watch my previous video, which is about introduction to quadratic equations, which will get you way more it's type of a background to what we're doing over here, so it'll get you started on what I'm talking about here, I guess. So I recommend you go watch that, because that is really important. And for the exercise and all, you'll really need that knowledge and this knowledge too, so you can do that without any difficulty. It'll be easy peasy lemon squeezy. So first of all, let's learn what the first rule is. First method is, which is factorization. So factorization has a bit steps, and so does all the other methods. And the first step you gotta do for to solve a quadratic equation in the method of factorization is to see if it is in standard form. And again, if you don't know how a quadratic equation looks in standard form, let me show you right over here. But again, I do recommend you go watch my previous video, because it'll be way easier and you'll get way more of what we're doing. So this is how ax squared plus bx plus c equal to 0, provided a is not equal to, not x. Am I writing? 0. And by the way, if you do not get this part right over here, provided a is not equal to 0, why not? Again, I recommend you go watch that, because I explained every single thing briefly in that video. So this is how to write a standard form of a quadratic equation. This right here. And so it just cannot be 0. And so that is the first step. So if any single quadratic equation is not in this, then you need to turn them into this. So usually it's like either, like, let me just show you an example from like here. So if a quadratic equation is like this, yes. If this constant, the constant term, which is c, is on the other side, which is basically the number, it's on the other side, it doesn't have an x or an x squared, it's on the other side, well, transferring this constant term to the other side will let you have a standard form of a quadratic equation. So that's exactly what we need. If it's already in standard form, then that just made your work a lot easier. All you now have to do is do the next step, I guess. You don't need to do the step, so because it's already in the standard form. Now let's understand factorization with an example. So our example is going to be x squared plus 10x plus 25x. Sorry, not the 25x, it's only 25 because that is our constant term equal to 0. So as you can see here, as we just talked about earlier, that, or just right now, that the first step is to bring a quadratic equation to standard form. And as you can see, this is already in a standard form, so there's no need to apply this rule, because even if you do, you're going to get nothing else in the same thing that's written right there. So if the constant term was on the other side, you would shift it to this side or any single thing else like that. But other than that, all you gotta make it is in standard form, and this is already in standard form. So let's move on to the second step. Step number 2 is to multiply ax squared with c, the constant term with ax squared. So over here we have x squared. So the coefficient of x squared is 1, so we don't really need to care about that anymore. I mean, 1 multiplied by something is the same thing, I mean the other thing, so it's going to be x squared multiplied by 25, which we're going to write right over here, 25x squared. And what we need to really pay attention to, because this part's important, is that whatever the sign right here of the 25 is, we're going to like mention that, like look at that thoroughly, and then after that we're going to write it right over here, so it's going to be plus 25x squared. Really important. Like, if you don't follow this step, or if you forget, then you might make a mistake in your question. I'm pretty sure you will. I'm not giving you bad luck. So now this is 20 plus 25x squared. So what we have to do, like, that was a second step, multiplying them both. Now third step is writing this over here and making factors of it. Making such factors of it that when you sum them up, you get this middle portion right here, which is 10x squared, or bx from here. So what we're going to do is we're going to make factors of this. If that confuses you, we're going to make basically things that if you multiply them, you'd get 25. I hope that makes sense. So it's going to be 1 multiplied by 25. And now, the thing is, we have x squared here. So we're going to add x to both of these, so it would actually make up x squared. Actually, I'm going to write x in another color so it doesn't confuse you. So x, and then there's also an x over here. So when you would multiply this, it would be 25x squared. And let's make more factors. So another factor, or the other only factor, is 5, and then multiply by 5. And of course we're going to add x to these two too. So it's going to be x and x, and then 25x squared. Thing is, when you multiply them, we get the right result, because, you know, that's obvious. I just wanted to point that out. But now what we gotta do is actually plus them, so let's look right over here. Equal to and equal to. So when we plus these two factors, we're supposed to get, again, this middle factor right over here. So let's proceed to plus them. So this is going to be 1, and 1, basically, we're going to, like, let's write it in red, I guess. Plus. Now we're going to start plussing these two. So it's going to be 1x plus 25x, or x plus 25x. It's going to be 26x. And when we're going to plus these, so it's going to be 10x. So, as you can see, one of these two have to be the middle term, and if they're not, then yes, sometimes it can be like none of the factors are the middle term, and if that ever occurs in a question, or if you ever are in that situation, then all you have to do is switch your method, because factorization only drawback to factorization is that not all quadratic equations are solvable by the method of factorization. So if this happens, then that means that factorization method will not work for the question you're doing. You gotta do comparing the square or the quadratic formula. So for now, we can see 26x is not going to work, but this surely will, the 10x, because that's exactly what it writes right over there. So what we're going to do is, now I need to explain a really extra important step over here, which you really want to keep your ears on, because it's going to be really important, and again, it can really help you do a question right instead of wrong. So if you see a plus over here, this is the reason why you gotta see a plus over here. If you see a plus on any, whenever you multiply ax squared plus c, whenever you multiply them, if it is plus, then both of the factors that you get, you will make them both positive. So this is going to be a plus x, or 1x, and a plus 25x. Or it can be both of them minus. So this can also be a minus 1x or a minus 25x. No need to try plus minus there like I did. I mean, I just gave it as an example, but you don't really need to write it there, but it's like a possibility. It could be, so basically if there's a plus, both of the factors can be plus and both of them can be minus. And if you're wondering, like, how do I know which was minus? Do I put any of them? It doesn't matter. No. You need to look at this over here. If the middle factor, which is bx, if over here it's 10x, if that sign is negative, then both of the factors will be negative. If it's positive, then both of the factors will be positive. So they will be only like that if this is plus, and then they'll only be plus if this is plus, and if this is minus, then both the factors will be minus. So there we go. So, and another thing, let's have another scenario over here. If it was like minus 25x squared, well, and let's write the factors down too. X multiplied by 25x and 5x multiplied by 5x. So now you need, again, pay attention to the sign. It's minus, and now what are you going to do? And no, you can't put both of them as minus or both of them as plus anymore. That's only if you have a plus over there. Now that you have a minus, there is basically an entire other rule. So it's one of them can be minus. Like either this x can be minus, either this 25 can be minus, either this 5 or either this 5. It doesn't really matter in both of these because they're both the same. Like they're not bigger or smaller. Like this is basically a 1 and this is 25. So yeah, but these are both 5, so yeah. So now, which one will be 5 is also another confusion, which I'm just going to straighten up just in a second. So again, you got to see this, you got to look at this. If this is plus, as it is right now, if it were to be plus, then the bigger number would be plus, because I don't know if you know, or I don't know if you remember, but whenever like this situation is happening, if they're like both of the values are of, let me write it like a little quick thing over here, like plus 7 and minus 5. What would that equal to? It would equal to 2 plus 2 to be specific. And then if it were to be like plus 5 minus 7, what's the difference? All I did was change the signs. Well, it's going to be minus 2 in this case because the bigger number right here holds the sign. So whatever the answer is, so if we cross this out, we know that they're minusing because 1 is plus 1 is minus. We would minus them straight up like We did 2, and then after that, when we would put the sign, we would look at the bigger one sign as right over here it's minus, and over here the bigger one, like, which is 7, is sign is plus. We put a plus there. So exactly like that, we come over here, and then if this 10 or whatever the sign of bx is, if it is positive, then the bigger one will be positive, and if it's negative, then the bigger one will be negative, and the smaller one will be, you know, whatever, like the opposite of the bigger one. So that is a little thing over there. This is like how to make the factors. So of course this is the real one that we have right here. This right here, let me circle it. These are the factors we have. So we're gonna put, after we found the factors, obviously you don't need to do all these steps that I just did, because these aren't steps. It's just me explaining to you guys, but this was basically step 3. All you gotta do is make factors. Right now, it might seem harder than it really is, but obviously I'm giving way more examples for you guys to understand, but it's gonna be really simple once you do it just as a question and not like, you know, teaching someone. So these are your factors, and let me repeat and write them right here. There are 5x and 5x, and there's plus in between. These are our factors, and basically what we're going to do is we're going to take both of these factors and put them into bx. That was a long line. We're going to put them into bx. So let's do exactly that. So now we're running out of space, so I'm basically just going to write the question all over again so we can do this really type of again. X squared plus 10x plus 25, well, I'm going to make this one quick, equal to 0. First step is done. Second step, we'll multiply these two. I'm going to do that right over here, 25x squared. Factors are 1x plus 25x. Don't really need to write that. And then other factor is 5x plus 5x. This is the right one. That's the wrong one. Or we don't really need it. For this question, it's wrong. For other questions, it might be correct. So we're going to put these two in bx's, or like 10x. So it's going to be x squared plus 5x plus 5x plus 25 equal to 0. Now, since there were 3 terms at the starting, there was x squared plus there was 10x and plus there was 25. Equals 0. So we turn the 3 into 4, and now we're going to basically turn them into 2. So it's going to be like, we're going to take from each 2, from like each 2 meaning these 2 and these 2, we're going to take something common. So in the first pair, the thing that's common is x, so we're going to write x equal bracket, or yeah, inside, into x plus 5. And if you don't really get the concept of this, all this is writing this in another way. All we did was write this x squared plus 5x in x into x plus 5. And if we multiply x with x plus 5, we're going to get exactly that back. So we just wrote it in another way. And then plus, the thing that's common from these two is 5, and then x plus 5. Equal to 0. So now we basically have 2 because, I mean, we still have 2, obviously we're going with 2, and we're going to remain with 2, and the reason for that is that a quadratic equation will always have 2 values, because like if we have a linear equation, it'll have 1 value. If we have other like higher equations, we'll have like whatever the power of the equation is, that's the number of answers you'll get. So for a quadratic equation, first of all, quad does mean square, and if you did not know that and you want to know more like that, then go to my previous video, which is the introduction. It will tell you every single thing you need to know about quadratic equation and what the word means and every single thing you might have a question about. So, right now we're talking about this, like, quad means the square, which is basically over here, it's not literally like a box, it's like the square is 2. So 2, and we have 2 values, that's exactly what we're talking about. So, over here, as we have like these two, we see that, let me choose another color. x plus 5 and x plus 5 are the same thing. So what we're basically going to do is write them both once. So it's going to be x plus 5, sorry. Only once. We're going to write. And over here, it's and now we're going to write x and plus 5. So let's write those two. We're also going to write them in brackets, so it's going to be x plus 5, equal to 0. Now we're going to basically individually write them, so x plus 5 equal to 0 and x plus 5 equal to 0, so it's going to be like x plus 5 equal to 0. I'm just solving one of them, and obviously the other one's going to have the same value, but I'm going to do it for both, so it's going to be, I have the bracket, it's going to be like that, and then when we're going to transfer 5 to the other side, its sign will change. It's going to become a negative sign, so when it goes to the other side, it's going to become minus. Let's write that down. X equal to minus 5. We're going to do that once more just to, write that just so you also get it, Basically the same thing, though we're doing it for the other values. So I have bracket, and then transfer to other side. It's going to be minus 5. These are both of our values. They're basically the same, but here's our solution set. Minus 5 and minus 5. So that was our first example. Let's continue doing some more examples so we get a nice, understanding. So I have another example over here. You know what? Cut it out where I just came, when I was up and then I just came down, cut it there. And then now start it. Wait, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. So now we have another example over here. 2x squared minus 9x plus 1. Now this example, we're going to start equal to 0. Sorry, I forgot that part. So now this example, obviously we're going to start from the first step, which is writing a quadratic equation in standard form. And it's already in standard form if, you can see it. Never mind. Okay, I'm doing this one more time, so start it again. Cut it there. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. So now we're going to do another example. 2x squared plus 9x. Sorry, that's a minus. Let's put that as minus. Minus. Plus 1 equal to 0. First step of factorization is that it must be in standard form, which it already is. So what we're going to do is we're going to move on to the second step, which is multiplying ax squared and c. We're going to do that, and when we do that, it's going to be 2x squared plus multiplied by 1, so it's going to be 2x squared basically, and it's going to be plus of a plus. Take factors of that, it's going to be 1 multiplied by 2, x, and then 2x multiplied by 1. How cool. So now these factors right here, we're basically gonna, if we multiply them, we're gonna get 2x squared, but what about if we plus them? Will we get this answer in the middle? Let's see. So 1 plus 2, 3, and then x, and then 2 plus 1, same thing. They're both 3x, and both of them are wrong. So what do? These are the only two possible factors. Yeah, both of them are the possible factors. You don't even need the second factor, but I wrote it just to give variety, though both of them are obviously wrong. And what do we do in these types of situations? We move on to the second method, which brings us to our second method right here. So it is completing the square. Completing the square. Now in this method, yes, we have some rules.